Welcome back, everybody, to the Who's Accountable podcast. I'm your creator and host of this platform. My name is Mahael Abdul Kawi. I'm also the founder and a representative of the Accountability Party for Human Rights. Who we are a political vanguard organization, a collective of individuals who have dedicated ourselves to the cause and to the mission of standing up for, with, and by the working class oppressed people um, across this country. Through this platform, other members of the party, as well as myself and occasional guests that we will have on the show, we will discuss moments in our current history that affect the working class and just oppress people here in this country and all around the world. We will be talking about players involved who, if they held more accountability, maybe things would have worked out better for them and for the people who were affected. So I would like to thank those who have been seeing the previous videos, who have been supporting, and I would like to welcome all the new viewers and thank you for tuning in and and uh, and you're hearing me rant. For this video, I want to take time to open the conversation about what's currently going on with Israel and the Palestinians. And I know right now it is being talked about across, well, I would hope it's being talked about, on every news platform. And even if you're just the average person who doesn't really care or know, I hope that you took time, at least 5 seconds, 30 seconds out of your time to share something, uh, to share some type of truth on the situation, because especially if you are part of the working class of this country, because what's going on in Israel to the Palestinians is something that, if you take a step back and you observe this country, the United States of America, you would see that it's a very similar situation. What's happening to the Palestinians is no different from what the oppressed people have been dealing with here in this country for the last 500 years. I saw this video uh, on the, what channel was it? On the Humanist Report. And he was sharing different clips of people talking about it. And no, what was it? It was the squad members. Yes, that's what the video was. It was the squad members of Congress. They were standing up for the Palestinians, and they were bringing the conversation forward to Congress and why the United States government should not stand up with Israel. And one of the people, and they each brought very good points. And the guy who I'm about to talk about, he had a great point, but something I would like to nitpick that he spoke about. He said that what's going on in Israel reminds him of what happened in South Africa with the apartheid. And yes, he is right. It's a very similar situation. But to me, it goes deeper than just South Africa, because people aren't willing to recognize that that's also happening here, and nobody's willing to speak up about it as well too. And I'm saying this because we should always stand with people who are being oppressed, no matter what country you are in, because human rights is human rights, and we should all stand up for the privilege and the guarantee that when you are born on this earth, you are guaranteed human rights. It shouldn't be a privilege, but it is. So it's that thing where we have to care about when people aren't able to live out their human rights no matter where you're at. But at the same time, America seems to always avoid the public conversation with the fact that we are violating people's human rights on a daily basis. And yet nobody speaks about it. The UN is able to speak about these other countries in the moments there's civil wars, there's uprising, there's violence in the street, there's terrorists but why can't nobody speak on what's been happening to the United States internally for the last 500 years, even before the UN was even a thing? Because there was violation of human rights here in this country way before the fucking UN, and definitely to this day way after. And I bring up this point because people are getting frustrated with our government. Even though it is a new president, it doesn't change the politics that we have. Yes, there's more people speaking up against Israel and the oppressive hand that they have over the Palestinians. But when it comes to our government, there is no conversation when they're still supporting. And I bring up this whole fact that the crimes that happen internally in the United States are not talked about. I bring that up because how can you expect Joe Biden, the leader of the United States, to hold Israel accountable when he can't even hold his own country accountable to the crimes that we do every single fucking day? Let's not talk about the crimes that he did with Obama for 8 years straight. Nobody wants to talk about that though, right? But we can, stand up for other people, or we can put blame on other countries. It's hypocrisy at its finest. And this part of this video, I just want to talk to the people who really expect our government to change their ways. And you have to understand, this is just my personal take as a Muslim, as somebody that has dealt with, since 9/11, growing up in this country, ridicule at times. And it wasn't never to the point where I felt like I was being picked on, where I had to get outside help. But because my name is Mahaya Abdul Kawi, it's very apparent where my faith is. And after 9/11, there were a lot of jokes, a lot of terrorist jokes. And growing up, you do have to either brush it off, laugh it off, or whatever to just get through, because as you get older, you start to understand that this country truly, we've used a lot of scapegoats in the past for different conflicts that we wanted to get ourselves involved with, or use as propaganda for reasoning to get somewhere for a resource. We've used it against many groups, a lot of white groups too. The Irish, the Italian, Germans for a little bit. We've done to the Japanese, the Chinese. But it seems like Muslims are the consistent scapegoat. And it's a deep-rooted hate, regardless if it's the black Muslims that started sprouting up from the Nation of Islam. And although the nation had its own beliefs, at its core, it was still Islam. And that's all the American government saw. They didn't give a fuck about the details or not. I mean, they did when it came to starting internal conflict, with the Sunnis and with the brothers that followed Elijah Muhammad. But regardless if it was with the American black Muslims from the 50s and 60s forward, or even past that, when it comes to the Middle Eastern Muslims after World War II, settling that part of the land for Israel and the Palestinians. You have this always conflict, and this is where I would have to, take more time and really break down into it so that way I have more, historical proof. But with based on what I know, Muslims, especially in Christian dominated countries, are always seen as a threat. We're not even fighting the Palestinians, but we're willing to support those who are fighting against them. I love my Jews. I love everybody. But why is it that in this country, the minute you say a Jew in any sentence, even if you're not even if you're praising them as a culture, you're called anti-Semitic, or you're like, oh, you can't say that. But we could talk about Muslims in a way that's disrespectful, you're degrading, nothing but stereotypes. And if we want to be real, Islam is the only one of the big three that has the best results in terms of human development. All the other details and all that people want to bring up, oh, Islam this, Islam that, that's specific to regions and little branches. But the overall idea is it's a religion about peace. Do your fucking research. Why are they seen as the threat? So for a lot of different reasons. So in terms of just the secret status quo of being anti-Muslim, although that isn't the most apparent reason why the United States government is supporting Israel, I do believe it fits into their like their actions. Like it's on a pie chart, it's not the biggest slice, but it's definitely a part. And I feel like it's the same way that you find with like the FBI, with the COINTELPRO program, really for this American capitalistic mindset that we have to hold on to our way. And in some form of way, I do think it goes back to the Crusades. Any Christian dominant place, I feel like no matter what century it is, feels like they have to stand against Islam. And I would love to talk more about this later on, because I feel like that would be something to really break down further, and how that in itself is fueling hate in regions that have become fueled with other reasons, as in oil, or just like region purposes. Like, oh, if we go over here, we could be closer to this state, et cetera, et cetera. But something besides the anti-Muslim reasoning for being over there, I do think part of it, in terms of a modern sense, like Obama forward, maybe Bush, but I feel like Obama to Biden now, in terms of presidencies, why there would be interest in constantly supporting Israel, even though documentation throughout the years, especially since 2014, when that was the last time we've seen insane violence over there. A reason that I believe is because China is interested in trade and economic and infrastructure partnerships with Israel. And those who have seen my previous videos, or those that get their information from aware places, would know that we are in a new Cold War with China. I don't think you'll see it yet in the headlines. Maybe around 2024, it will start becoming like national thing where, oh, we are now in a Cold War. But that's what we are in. And China has been having a lot of interest in terms of getting involved with Israel, and with what's already happening in China, with them occupying and oppressing a lot of the Chinese Muslims as well that are over there. I would not be surprised. I mean, I I am not surprised to see that a Muslim oppressing country is deciding to support another Muslim oppressing country, you know, and that's that's just the surface of it. This hatred for Muslims, and it's a deeper, like, they keep tying in belief and faith into their politics, and we have this corruption clusterfuck, and it's really causing so much because now we have Muslims as the solid enemy no matter where they're at, because we're getting connected with things that don't even fit with their lifestyle. This on the East Asia Forum, this was written January of 2021. It says that hundreds of millions of dollars subsequently flowed from China into innovative tech companies and R&D centers in Israel. Toga Networks became an R&D center for Chinese telecommunications giant Huawei. Now, Alibaba, ChemChina, Kangxi, Legend, uh, uh, Lenovo, and I always fuck this one up. Xiaomi have all set up shop in Israel. Many of these investments and acquisitions have been in firms focused on cloud computing, artificial intelligence, semiconductors, and communication networks, areas that have great strategic and economic importance. The Israel government of the current leader, uh, they look they look to China for Israel's infrastructure needs, especially in cases when U.S. companies were invited to compete for tenders and refused. This is what occurred when Israel sought foreign companies to operate the newly privatized section of uh, Haifa port in 2015. China's expanding footprint in Israel began to alarm officials in 2014 when the former head of Israel's intelligence agency, Ephraim Halevi, criticized Israeli dairy corporation Nuva's acquisition by Chinese state-owned enterprise Bright Food, arguing that food security is a vital national interest and should not be in the hands of foreign governments. But yet they're selling their souls, or food souls. Israel has not been entirely naive regarding the risks associated with foreign entities investing in critical sectors. While serving as Commissioner of Capital Markets, Dorit Salinger blocked multiple attempts by Chinese companies to acquire Israeli insurers Phoenix and Cal. Yet, outside the financial realm, Israel continued to welcome Chinese capital with no indication that there was a need for scrutiny. The geopolitical landscape began to change in 2017 when Jerusalem's most important ally labeled China a strategic rival, the United States, since 2017. Mind you, the Cold War has been happening. The United States has since raised concern about Chinese companies conducting espionage and views China's infrastructure development projects and acquisition of advanced technologies as a threat to its global primacy. Yet we allow TikTok to dominate a whole generation. You're pretty much grooming them to be Chinese government sheep. The U.S.-China trade war has in some ways brought Israel and China closer together. Israel's semiconductor industry saw exports to China increase by 80% in 2018. As the United States closed the door to Chinese tech companies, they began looking to Silicon Valley. As China-Israel Technology Corporation continued unabated, Washington ramped up pressure on Israel regarding Chinese infrastructure projects, as it puts the capacity for the United States to work alongside Israel on important projects at risk. More recently, the United States has warned Israel publicly from increasing Chinese involvement in Israel's high-tech sector. But why would they give a fuck when China, and they're proven to do more. Beijing is seeking. This is according to Newsweek. Beijing is seeking to play a constructive role in mediating the latest round of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as the violence threatens to escalate to levels not seen since 2014. I remember that. I was a freshman in college then. I remember that week. On Monday, before the sides began trading rocket fire, China had raised concerns about the escalating tension. Hua Chunying, a spokesperson for the Beijing Foreign Ministry, called for calm and restraint. Her comments came after Israeli forces raided Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem over the weekend, injuring more than 300 people as they ended a weeks-long standoff with rubber bullets and tear gas. We hope that the relevant parties of the international community will work for an early resumption of peace talks between Israel and Palestine, according to relevant UN resolutions on the basis of a two-state solution. Watt said, China is ready to play a constructive role in this. Pretty much what they're saying is that if the United States is not willing to step up and do what they say they are supposed to be doing, which is this global police force, we are willing to do what's necessary. And we find this again. We now have two current crises happen overseas. In that same region, you have Israel and the Palestinians and what's going on there. That's been going on for like the last century or two. And then you have the COVID crisis that's happening in India. Israel, who we've sent $4 billion each year to the Trump administration. Let's not talk about how he did his part in fueling these tensions overseas as well, too, with Israel and just about every other fucking country. But Trump is Trump. And if Biden was the real leader that he says he is, like, I'm going to go back to what I was talking about, but, like, it's so fucking crazy how we expect this white savior to come with his FDR rhetoric as if he's actually going to do some legit shit. He's not. America has never in the mainstream news ever held accountability for the 4 black little girls who were bombed in a church in the 60s. One of the driving catalysts for the civil rights movement. In Alabama, Birmingham. We still haven't held ourselves accountable to the fact that that happened on American soil. A fucking Christian church in the Christian country that we are. A church was bombed and 4 little girls who were going to just... They were killed. We haven't held accountability for that. Yeah, we're supposed to hold accountability for people blowing up kids in the other place. We're not even there yet if we can't even hold ourselves to what we're doing here. So going back to what I was saying about India and with Israel, 2 places that are facing a crisis. 2 countries that America is supposed to be either, in Israel's case, supporting, being that cool cousin. Hey man, I need some money. Oh, we got you. That's what we have. And then we have India, who was predicted to be a great economic partner that was going to help us throughout the 2020 see this surge in trade and resources and really be this cash flow. And yet, if we're so dependent on their needs just because of our internal interest, plus it helps us have an upper hand against China, the country that we're supposed to be having a Cold War with. Like, I'm not trying to get involved, but I live in the United States. Shit, man, we got to do better. Because I feel we won't win this next Cold War. And this one is not going to be something... Russia hasn't been the same since. We're going to be like that. And because we have such an ego, it's going to hit harder. Our hubris is bubbling. And here comes China. In both cases. Yeah, their vaccines aren't as effective and are, more of a chance. But at least China's out there, and Russia, China's out there like, whatever country got it. Oh, the United States ain't helping you? All right, that's cool. Fine. Here we are. Boom. We got it. And we're over here fucking debating shit. Like, I say focus on domestic problems and all, but if we're going to be touting that we can change the world and dictate this, you got to at least do your part. And like I said, if you're going to be the villain, you got to be a good villain. At least China's out here with a plan. This is literally your despicable me. We are the main villain. We just fucking suck. And with Israel's case, if we don't step up and they call for China outside of the infrastructural trading bond that they are clearly already working on, it doesn't really fucking matter. Because China's just going to come in with their military force, with their diplomacy, and that would dictate where it goes. And with China already screwing over Muslims in their own country, I don't want to see what they can do outside of their borders. Or the ideas and all that they're going to, or the seeds that they're going to plant. I don't understand why the United States or China has to get involved. It should be every country literally saying, yo, let it be. Give them their fucking due. Call it a day. Move on. Accept it. Yeah, you're going to be pissed off, but guess what? We're the United Nations. We set the fucking... You're breaking human rights. We made the fucking contract. Do it. This is from the LA Progressive. I like this. You can argue all day as children do about who started this latest round of Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but assigning responsibility is futile. The root causes are what deserve attention, not the proximate causes. And those root causes are well known. The conflict between two nationalisms, the equally legitimate claims of Israeli Jews and the Palestinians to territory. The violence of Israeli superior military might that has led to an oppressive occupation and the one-sided policies of U.S. presidents in favor of legitimating the occupation with military aid and political support that every Israeli government has manipulated to keep the Palestinians down. Yes, both sides have resorted to terrorism over the years, but the overall contest for control has never been in doubt. Now with Israel having received about $4 billion annually in aid from the military since 2016, so at the end of Obama's year, Trump coming in, far more than any other U.S. security partner, those bunker busters you see being dropped by the Israeli Air Force on Hamas apartment building tells a story of disproportionate violence, which means they're bringing a gun to a knife fight. Donald Trump clearly, oh yeah, he shares blame, blah, blah, blah. Trump supported the current president's pro-settlement policies, moved the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem from Tel Aviv, and intervened in Israeli elections on behalf of the Israeli right wing. And some did everything he could to support a one-state solution, pretty much favoring Israel, even though he knows there was conflict going on, which favoring one side when there isn't peace or balance is only going to further bring chaos. What's happened? Biden needs to make a clean break, not just from the Israeli right wing and his hard-line, trigger-happy leader, but also from traditional Democratic Party patrons of Israel. It's never going to happen. Again, like I said, we can't be accountable for the fucking crimes that we do, bro. How long did it take for us to apologize for dropping 2 weapons of mass destruction on innocent lives for the sake of ending a... Don't get me started on World War II. President Joe Biden said he didn't think Israel's attacks on Gaza has been a significant overreaction. He expressed his unwavering support for Israel's right to defend itself from rocket attacks. But I think this morning or yesterday said that he wants peace. Bro, you only want peace and all because you see that other countries are responding better or there's more pressure on you now. But we know you and your little cronies don't give a flying fuck about the Palestinians. As long as you have your business partner and as long as you support them so that way they don't go to China. You don't... if Here we go. I like this one. U.S. Secretary of State Mike... the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's message to Israel on a recent visit was blunt. This is by the Foreign Policy. This is written last year, June 16, 2020. After years of blooming Israeli-Chinese commercial relations and the awarding of a string of port of mass transit projects to Chinese building uh, conglomerates, Israel must tread warily or risk cooperation with its most important ally. Pretty much sending threats and all that. That we need to start threatening, giving ultimatums to Israel, saying, cut your relations with China or you're going to lose us. And high key, I don't think Israel gives a fuck when China is helping them out, honestly. Um, but despite the bow to U.S. warnings, Israel appears to be pressing ahead on other deals, highlighting a substantial gap in the positions of the two countries on whether commerce with China poses a security threat. Washington's trade war with Beijing is making the tensions even more acute. Israel sees China as opportunity. A former Israeli ambassador to Washington, Michael Oren, says, for the United States, China is a threat. So they see it as an opportunity, and we see it as a threat. And they're just in the middle like, yo, I'm going to get whatever shit I can get from the United States while I can, knowing that we're still being supplemented. It's like, yo, I'm going to get my drugs from this guy, knowing that I found a better one. But because he still gives me shit for cheap, I'm going to get it. But this guy got some good stuff. It's fucked. For Israel, the opportunities abound. Chinese construction companies are expected to bid on upcoming infrastructure projects in Israel, ranging from light rail to 5G telecommunication networks. And the Chinese are expected to invest billions of dollars in Israeli technology ventures in the coming years. Pretty much where we're at is we have these two where they're literally supporting them in the infrastructure way. So it doesn't even have to be through military. Israel is getting their military funding from us, and it's just cool. But what really matters is the infrastructure. Any country or any leader with common sense knows its infrastructure. And when you can flex that, that's what shows your might. When you're able to say we have this technology, our people are thriving, our economy's boosting, that's definitely more of a threat than a strong military. Shout out to North Korea. So I'm going to finish this video here, but pretty much I wanted to do my part in bringing this from this perspective because it connects to the current Cold War that we're going through with China, and it's all connected. And any support from our government for this cause, to me, is deeper than anything prior. The support solely, from my observation, comes from the fact that we don't want Israel to be buddy-buddy with China. They don't care about the Muslims. They don't care about people here in the United States speaking up against it. They don't care about the Squad's little beautiful little speech that they gave. When at the end of the day, this Cold War is going to dictate our foreign and domestic policy. This is the first time, not even with the previous Cold War, but in just any national conflict, where the United States government is not dictating where this goes. It's the corporations in domestic policy, and it's the Pentagon for the foreign. And this class war and this Cold War is not going to help the oppressed people. So inshallah, I'll keep speaking about it. I know there's many other platforms and people speaking out, other organizations. We have to keep waking up the oppressed class. Let the upper echelon fight these motherfuckers. And if we have to fight here and there for that, yes, we will stand up. But we have to start establishing our own, because clearly, with these conflicts going on, they don't give a fuck about us, because we're going to be the first to go. So we have to stand up together for this. Inshallah, for the working class people, we can survive and thrive through all of this crazy shit that's going on right now.